Good? Okay. Easy to understand? No? There are three primary flaws that we identify. There are three averos that a Jew has to give his life up for because they're so principe, they're so basic to Torah and to Adam that they trump all other mitzvos. What are those three mitzvos? Gili arayos, shvichas damim, and avodah zarah. Okay. A violation of those. So what that means, if you look at the other way around, that is the definition of what a mensch is. A mensch is, in a positive sense, someone who has a holy, sacred relationship. Gili arayos means that they respect the sanctity of the unit of the family of husband and wife, also of friends, any relationship, to have sanctified relationships, as opposed to anybody, anywhere, which is called, by the way, a kadesha. A kadesha, ironically, is exactly the opposite of the word of kadosh. It's mukdash l'tuma. It's mukdash l'tuma. So then, on the second aspect. And why? Because Gili Arayos really is a mashal, like in Shir Shirim, for the love between a human being and Hashem. If you cannot have a positive relationship in this world that will bring in Kedusha, and I'll speak this whether it's a marriage, a relationship with a child, or whether it's a relationship with a friend, there has to be Kedusha in that relationship. And I'll prove it to you. What does it say in Pirkei Avos is the example of the greatest love of all time and the worst love of all time? Who was that? I think we're learning Pirkei Avos.
David is the greatest, and Tamar and Amnon is the
Okay, but David and Yonatan were friends. Okay, they weren't a couple, right? And who's the worst example? Amnon and Tamar. So when we speak about love, we're not talking about the classic relationship even of marriage. You know, you would think if you were writing Pirkei Avos, let's say I gave you that job, a little seis, and you'll feel good about yourself. Write a nice Mishnah about who was the greatest example of love and who was the lowest example of love. Who would you pick as the greatest example of love? You pick a husband and a wife. Who was the most, how would you say, the greatest love affair in all of Tanakh? Who was that? Yaacov and Rachel, right? He was willing to work for her 7 years and postpone because of his great love for her. The Torah says that. Why in the world did Pirkei Avos not pick Yaakov and Rachel? Did you ever think about that? Isn't that an obvious choice? Listen carefully. When Yaakov loved Rachel, there was still something that ultimately Yaakov was going to get out of it. What was Yaakov going to reach an objective with Rachel? That his most important objective in life was to do what? Establish the 12 Shvatim. Was she going to help him do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He thought all 12 were going to come from her. Turned out it was going to be not quite like that.
Oh, it's based on something.
That's right. It's called Ahava Teluya B'Davar. The Mishnah is looking for an example of an Ahava She'eno Teluya, because that's what the Mishnah says. An Ahava She'eno Teluya B'Davar is always Kayam. And the example cannot be Yaakov and Rachel, because it was Teluya Davar. He wouldn't have gone and schlepped all the way there if he didn't have the objective of raising Shvatim. He even gives a hard time to love and say, hey, you made me work all these years. Come on, I got Shvatim to make. Let's get on with this. Right? He challenges him. Havi, give me my wife. I have a job. I have to serve Hashem. No, that's called Teluya B'Davar. What happens with David and Yonasan? How is their friendship completely selfless? What happens if David befriends Yonasan if Yonasan befriends David as opposed to seeks to destroy him, which is what his father did? What happens to Yonasan?
He would be killed.
As Shaul told him. Well, Yonatan was giving away his own malchus. Shaul thought that was the greatest tragedy. He yelled at him. He says, "You're embarrassing your family. You're embarrassing your mother. The heir of your mother. You're exposing." Meaning, you are stripping our family of our malchut. And yet he loved him. So real Ahavat Teluya B'Davar is not neutral. It's if it's to your own detriment. You understand? Yonatan's love for David was to his own detriment. He lost everything. But why did he love David? Because he knew the truth that David personified what the Torah wanted a human being to be. And that in that sense he was superior to David. David was superior to him and therefore was worthy of being Melech HaMashiach. And he was not worthy of being Melech HaMashiach because he wasn't quite on that level. But he was perceptive enough to identify that David was. And giving away from Binyamin to Yehuda, going from Yosef's clan over to, it was not a simple thing, right? It's relinquishing the Malchut. Such a dynamic will take place between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. It will take place. There will be such a thing. Where the stage of Mashiach ben Yosef precedes Mashiach ben David, but there will be a love and a mutual respect that will be overlapping. Okay, in any case. So, that's the first one, Gili Arayos. Shvichus Damim is the second one, murder. Why is murder the antithesis of Adam? Why? Because a person has Tzelem Elokim. If you destroy a person, you've destroyed and you've attacked their divine image. You've turned them into dam. You've turned them into nothing but a pool of blood. You've taken the aleph, which is Hashem, away from the dam, which is the body. You've split out the aleph from the dam, and therefore you've destroyed his divine image. That's a terrible thing. This is what Hashem wants from a person. He wants a human being to be alive. Unlike all the people who want to blow themselves up to smithereens, and they think that that's going to be their perfection. They have a rude awakening. And the last one is what? Gilei Arayos Shvichas Damim Avodah Zarah. Now, Avodah Zarah essentially means estrangement from God. The Rambam explains that Avodah Zarah started off rather innocently, saying Hashem created hosts and hosts of angels, a myriad of angels, that run his affairs, and as they move down into the physical world, the stars and the constellations are also the next level. They're not quite angelic beings, they're physical beings, but they have an intelligence that Hashem has adhered with to keep their orbits and to serve Hashem by being to transfer, how it works I can't tell you, the will of Hashem through the mazel down to the physical world. It's a way of transitioning between the realm of the Malachim and the realm of Adam. The stars are the vehicle. So people make a mistake. They say, okay, stars are in charge. The stars are in charge. It's my fate. Look at my horoscope. What's going to happen to me? The stars are in charge, right? No, that's a mistake. The stars are a messenger of Hashem, and to set up your world and to set the stage for Hashem's hashgacha pratis. Take, for example, even David HaMelech, the ideal man. What mazel was he born under? It says he was born under a mazel of ma'adim, of bloodshed, right? And that's why his complexion was ruddy. And his propensity was bloodshed. How do you turn that into the service of God? Only if you're fighting Amalek, or if you're fighting the Plishtim, the mortal enemies of God. Not that he wants to do it, but if it needs to be done, it's there. So that's the third quality. Now, says the Kli Yakar that the Metzora reflects these three problems. And he wants to identify them as, like, say, Sapachas Baharis, or the whole category of Negoim in that sense. In other words, a person can have one of three problems. Either if you got a problem with Gilei Arayos, in some way you're off in terms of the Kedusha and altruism of loving relationships, there's something wrong. Number two, you could have a problem with murder, meaning you're being harmful to people. You're hurting people in a way that was not helpful. If a person is a surgeon and he's going to conduct a very difficult brain surgery and he's removing a tumor, then that is called ultimate kindness, right? That's a kindness. but you're spilling blood, aren't you? You're cracking a guy's head open. No, that's not called spilling blood in the negative sense. But if you say a word to somebody that's malbim pnei chaveru barabim, that you embarrass somebody publicly, and blood rushes to their face, as the Gemara says, what are you considered? A rotseach. Okay? Next. So you could have an issue with ritzicha, meaning you are causing harm and damage in ways, you're using your kochot, your strength, in ways that are hurting and not healing. And the third problem is, of course, avodah zarah. Avodah zarah means that you are distancing yourself from Hashem. And if you are distancing yourself from Hashem, by worshiping various gods, the gods of mammon, the gods of kavod, the gods of self, whatever the gods may be, that's important to you, celebrities, princess, whatever her name is, Kate, what's her name? Oh, he's getting married. Who's getting married? Lahavdil, the prince is getting married. The whole world wants to see this guy get married. And Oisvurf, you know what I mean? What is he already? You know what I'm saying? This is it.
Who's getting married?
See, there, you're on a good... The royal family, the royals, they make of them such a big thing and pomp and circumstance and parade them around and give them money and this and clothing and people and get dressed up in ridiculous costumes. Why? Why are they so important? What's that? Oh, he did, yeah, exactly. So that's a form of avodah zarah. You're putting the emphasis and you're giving the kavod to the person who's really not worthy of it. Okay, now these are therefore not just averos in the biggest sense, but they are also internal character flaws that can be manifest by outside activities. Now, that brings me to the Gemara in Maseches Erechim. Maseches Erechim is one of the Erechim values. When a person makes a vow to say, I'm going to give this person's value to the Beis HaMikdash. Hopefully he has a good idea in mind. He wants to. I'm honoring my friend. I'm donating my friend's value to the Beis HaMikdash. Hopefully he has a good intention. So it says in Maseches Erechim, the famous statement, Rav Yossi ben Zimra says, whoever speaks Lashon Hara gets tsaras. The first source that says that tsaras is not just a dermatological problem, but it actually manifests a spiritual or characterological flaw. That's the Gemara. Now, and Reish Lakish adds, Zos Torahs HaMetzora, Motzi Shem Ra. So Reish Lakish identifies the Metzora as somebody who's actually defaming other people with his words. So it backs up Rav Yossi ben Zimri. But look at this. Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani says in the name of Rav Yochanan, right? We mentioned Rav Yochanan before, the most handsome of all men. He said an amazing thing. Listen to this. He says, Tsaras comes for 7 unique sins. Listen to this. This is a list worth writing down. Number 1, of course, Lashon Hara. Everybody knows that one. Everybody agrees on that. But Shmuel bar Nachmani, in the name of Yochanan, extended this out further. As did, by the way, there are midrashim also that add as many as 10 different problems. But here's the 7 that are mentioned in the Gemara Erechin Daf Tesvav. He says, Tesvav Tezayin. 1, Lashon Hara. 2, Ritzicha, murder. 3, Shvuot Shav, false oaths. 4, Gilei Arayos. So you see some of our classic ones creeping into this list. Okay. Gaiva, Gasus Ruach, that's the 5th one. 6th is Gezel, theft. These are things that you find where? Where are these items? And stinginess, kamtzanos, not sharing your wealth with others.
That's the last? Or
No, Gasus Ruach is 1. In other words, let's review the list. Number 1, Lashon Hara. Number 2, Ritzicha. Number 3, Shavuot Shav, a false oath. Number 4, Gilei Arayos. Number 5, Gaiva or Gasas Ruach. That's number 5. 6 is theft, Gezel. And 7 is kamtzanos, stinginess, miserliness. Okay. Anybody have a question about this list? Number 4 means sexual misconduct or corruption in relationships. Relationships that are unholy as opposed to relationships that are holy. Right? Stinginess, yeah. Kamtsanus. Right? Your money or your life. Jack Benny says, I'm thinking. Right? I'm thinking. Kamtsanus. Does anybody have a question about the composition of this list of 7? Are they all kind of, would you put all these items in the same category or the same level? Which ones, like they give these questions to the kids, which belongs and which doesn't belong? Which belongs?
Katsanis doesn't fit together with
Why?
Pesach.
Why?
It's not listed in Aseret HaDibros.
Oh, there you go. Some of these are straight off the Aseret HaDibros. Shavuos Shav, Aseret HaDibros. Ritzicha, Lo Sirtzach, Aseret HaDibros. Gili Arayos, right? Lo Sinaf. Lo Sigzo, Aseret HaDibros. Gaiva's not listed on the Aseret HaDibros. Lashon Hara is not mentioned on the Aseret HaDibros. And neither is Kamtsanus.
But it's under the category of Ritzicha.
Okay, so I'm going to offer an interpretation that I think solves this problem. You're already on to the resolving of it, okay? We don't mean actual murder, nor do we mean actual Gili Arayos. What do we mean? The type of use of speech which is the equivalent or is in the spirit of murder. Obviously, stinginess cannot be compared. You don't have to give your life because you're cheap. Buy this very expensive item or I will kill you. Oh, you don't have to die. I'm from Katsanos. There's no mitzvah. So what it means is that there are 7 types of speech. This is my interpretation. So I'm sorry, I apologize if it is true or not true. On this I do take responsibility. That I believe what it means is you can use your words in ways that are the equivalent of these various sins. For example, Lashon Hara we understand. Murder, how do you murder with words? We said, Hamal ben eskepecha beiro barabim is ilu like hara, it's like you killed them. So, embarrassment of others, destruction of reputation and character, fake news. Fake news. Could be ritzicha. I think that it's actually been documented that when people put up various damaging pieces of information on social media, that people actually committed suicide. So this is not far-fetched. Words of slander can result in a sense of murder. Cyberbullying, right? Plus, if you destroy a person's parnasa, we say, one of the people, it's called like a mace, is an ani, zaymel a mace. An ani is you ruined their reputation. They can't work anymore. You made them into a mace. Now, Shavuos Shav, which is number 3, is a false oath, is obvious, because what you're doing is you're saying that there's no emes, there's no truth. You're going into a court of law and you're making it a sham. There's no truth, there's no justice. Everything is lies. I heard recently, over Yontif, we have a few minutes, was the story, I was reading about the story of the doctor's plot. Speaking about false oaths. The doctor's plot. You know what the doctor's plot was? After World War II, in early 1950s, Stalin went completely crazy. He was bad as it was. He was a homicidal maniac. But something happened that led him to an idea that he wanted to frame a bunch of Jewish doctors for having killed one of these high-ranking deputies of his that checked into a hospital and then was found dead. Actually, what they did was this guy had a heart condition, and the doctors were instructed by Stalin to tell him, yeah, go running, go for a jog. And the guy dropped dead. So it was engineered by Stalin, but they wanted to pin the blame on this Jewish woman who took an EKG of this guy. They threw her in prison and they tortured her. And she refused to admit that she did anything wrong because she didn't do anything wrong. And she's one of the real heroines of that whole story of the fall of Stalin. She was tortured beyond belief, and she was a Jewish lady. She never agreed to their slander, the false oath and the false testimony. Out of this grew a plan that all Jews are not loyal to the communists, and they must be removed from Russia and sent to Siberia in open cattle cars that they'll all freeze to death before they even get there. So on Purim of 1953, the Lubavitcher Rebbe conducted one of his first, he became Rebbe in like 1950, 51, that a Purim Farbrengen. And he told the following story, about the Jews in Russia. Remember, he grew up in Russia, that they were trying to work within the system by electing, as if there were elections, a certain communist leader who was less terrible than the other leaders. And one was a pure anti-Semite, and one was only a halba anti-Semite. So every Jew, every Lubavitcher at the time, who were still considered citizens of the Soviet Union, were given a vote, and they were told to go to the polls and vote for this guy, the lesser of the two evils. And when their candidate won, the Lubavitchers started singing, "Hurrah, hurrah!" They won. Now, it was a very tmimistic, simple Jew who thought that they said, "Hoorah." He is evil. So he's going like, he's evil, so why are we celebrating? You know, if the guy that you elected is evil, you didn't understand. So Baal Shem tells this story, and he says, asks everybody to join him and say along with me, "Hoorah! Hoorah!" And he was focusing on Stalin, who at that point was about to really set that whole. It would have been a second Holocaust, kipshuto, and even worse than Hitler's camps, because Hitler, they tried to give some pretense that they were going to protect them and help them. At least emotionally, they made it, like a little less stressful on them. But Stalin had no air. He was going to pack them into cattle cars and kill them all. That night, Stalin was with his two closest deputies. Stalin spent most of his time conspiring, all sorts of false testimonies. He never ever gave an order to kill anybody. Do you know that? He just spoke about these enemies. We have these enemies, and he expected his deputies to go out and do his dirty work for him. It's like lahavdo. I mean, anyway, you could even say about Hitler, Yimach Shemo V'Zichro, he might not have ever said to make a concentration camp. He might not have ever said to kill a Jew, but it was understood that that's what his will was. Same thing. So that's why I say false oaths. Everything was, and there were articles in the paper about the Jews, how they were against it. Everything false, fake news. Until that night, there was a drinking party with his two advisors. He went to sleep, and he had an aneurysm and dropped dead. So it happened simultaneous to the Farbrengen. And they were singing in 770, "Hoorah, hoorah!" And in the middle of that night, which was, the night in New York, and it was early dawn over there, at some point he had an aneurysm, dropped dead. Now some say that he was poisoned by his deputies because they realized that he was a completely, diabolical. He was already, but that they did not agree with this idea of the genocide of the Jewish people. That far they couldn't go. So. Hoorah. What's that?
Were they Jewish themselves?
I don't think that those two were Jewish, no. But, no, he wouldn't let a Jew be that close. But in any case, false oaths. So we have words that can murder. We have words that destroy a legal system and create false realities and false slanders. We have Gilui Arayos. How do you have Gilui Arayos Lashon Hara? Well, first of all, a person could say something about somebody that did something immoral. That's number one. But also, if you destroy a marriage or a shidduch because of your words, isn't that a form of Gilui Arayos? Because here was a couple that was supposed to live b'kiddushin, and now they're just not going to live together. You broke up their relationship, or you prevented the relationship from taking place. Or a girl from going out with a certain boy, or whatever it is. You're tampering with their inner sanctum of Kedusha, their zivug. If you say words that act against the zivug, you could view that in the context of Gilui Arayos. Who are you to interfere? What is Gilui Arayos? You're interfering with the intimacy of others. Who are you? Get out of here. This is not your place. You can interfere with your words. And then arrogance, we know. Theft. Well, you could use your words to tell people to invest, right? Talk them into buying things that are not for them. I don't have to go further. You could say a lot of words that are theft. And then stinginess. Stinginess means words of stinginess, meaning, what do you need that for? What? You don't need it. What do you need it for? Words of stinginess. That they don't, you're right, maybe I shouldn't, people don't think that they're worthy of having whatever goodness that Hashem really wants them to have.
Or giving it to another who needs it.
Right, or really giving to someone who needs it. They don't need it. So my sense is that this mimer of Rishmuel ben Nachmani is not different than Rav Yossi ben Zimra, who spoke about Lashon Hara, or Reish Lakish, who spoke about Motzi Shemer, which are both verbal offenses. These are also all verbal offenses, but they have such terrible impact. Okay, so to finalize, what's the way out of this? You go to the Kohen. The Siva Shalom says, the Kliyakar says, Hikdim Refulamaka. What's at the very beginning of the Parsha? The story about Bris Milah. Bris Milah. He says, you know what a bris is? A bris is when you curtail a drive that's destructive and turn it towards Kedusha. So that's what the Kohen's job is. Words that heal and not words that hurt, right? The Kohen's got to sit and talk to the person, talk them about, I don't say just about doing tshuva, but make them feel better about themselves, make them feel happier about themselves, that they don't need to resort to tearing other people down, build their self-esteem. And Rabbi Nachman uses this classic method, which is the words of the Kohen. What did Aaron used to be able to do? He was, as the Mishnah Nova says, he was Oev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. What do you mean Rodev? A Rodev is a murderer. What does it mean Rodev Shalom? He was so hot in the pursuit of Shalom. He was relentless. He was relentless. He put all his energy into making Shalom. How did he do it? He used to go to the wife and say, oh, your husband really loves you. He's got so many wonderful points. He's a monster. And then he goes to the wife and says to her, I says to the husband, your wife is a good woman, isn't it? She's who knows, a machshefa. But from the little point of good that he found within each of them, he was able to restore a relationship. How do you do that? So Rav Nachman explains that this is his famous Torah, number 282, called Azamra Elokai Be'odi, B'ma'at Tov Sheyesh. Every person, even if they descend from the level of Adam, all the way down to the level of Basar, the Kohen can still work with them. They say this.
What to do with the quarantine?
I'll get to that in a second. So quarantine may be a time, yes, to learn how to speak to yourself and others in a different way. A time to do hitbodidut. Speak to Hashem. Hashem can heal you. Ani Hashem rofecha. Chodesh Iyar stands for Ani Hashem rofecha. Turn the inner dialogue from one of hate and criticism of self and others to one of love, of good nekudot tovot. That is the process. Hence, the period of Sfiras HaOmer is all about Ben Adam le Chavero, finding the good nekudot in each other. And that's the transformation. And this is a methodology both for therapy and for kiruv, and for parenting, and for marriage. Look for the good in the other person. Don't see only the good, but use the good as a way to, as Reb Nachman says, put them on the kav zchus, put them on the path towards good. When you convince a kid or someone else that they're good in some way, they can then extend that to other areas of their life. And that's the avoda of oneg versus nega. Turn a person from an oneg. Say, this is a pleasure about this person. This person is a great person. This person is an oneg. They're a joy to be around. Not. But I'm going to transform them from nega to oneg. So I think that we see based on the Gemaras, based on the Meforshim, that saras is not something that we don't understand, and dermatological problems and how arcane, and it's not relevant to us. Adrabah. It's so important that it is actually the bridge between Chodesh Shmini, right, which was the beginning of the work of Aaron HaKohen, right? His most important work is extended not just the karbonos, right, but turning Klal Yisrael for the good, which was really the purpose of the karbonos for the first place. Okay, let's stop here.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I read recently that